Baldwin!
That's my old friend.
Look
Homie, my homie.
how beautiful you look, man. Oh my goodness.
So many,
What up, B?
so many years.
Oh my, when the last time I saw you, B?
Uh, I think we ran into each other maybe in West Hollywood at one of the clubs or at a restaurant. I said, it's been a while. I don't remember.
It's been a while, right?
Yeah,
But we seen each other after we saw Nadia. Because remember we had lunch with Nadia?
yeah. And of course, we're staying in touch with texting and
Of
few messages.
course, of course.
I really
Well,
admire
listen,
your.
first of all, I
Yeah,
want to say thank you for joining us. I want to thank, the amazing team at Era Management. I mean, Nadia, for giving me this platform to be able to chat about the good old, great days. I don't like calling it the good old days. I just like to call it a great days, great era. And we just want to be able to share some stories with, this generation and give a lot of respect to the people who paved the way for us. They they
yeah,
they're the people who put us where we are today. So
yeah. No
you
question.
know, so
No question.
thank you
Sorry
to
for the noise. I'm in New York City and we got a cement mixer outside that's getting a little impatient here.
How
Um,
long are you in New York for?
well, I've been living back here for the last year or so. I have China and I have three children. Two are in LA at university in LA, and my daughter is here. She's on a gap year from high school, and
Okay,
she's working here. She's been doing some work with Alice and Olivia, and
very cool.
yeah, she's been working. Really, we're really excited for her. She's our baby. She's still a teenager.
So Billy, do you know? This just hit me this morning. I believe I met China before I met you.
Very possible because she was on the scene, doing lots of movies, and she did like 10 or 15 movies. Her mother wouldn't let her act until she was like 16 or 17. When she was a
Right.
child, Disney approached her about being in the Mickey Mouse Club when she was like 5, 6, 7 years old. Her mother said no to everything, shut everything down. You're not working. They actually were having lunch once at La Dome, and Orson Welles came by the table and sat down with Michelle and China and called up Michelle later that day and said, I want China in my movie. And Michelle said no. When China was like 8 or 9 years old, she turned down an Orson Welles film. But when she became a teenager, she was running around the scene. She grew up in Hollywood. Her parents were in the Mamas and Papas, and she was doing Helena's and all that stuff. And at one point, she was dating Rob Lowe. So you may have seen her. Your paths may have crossed
No, no,
when I
no.
was
I
modeling
tell
for Nadia.
no. I'm
When I was
going to
modeling for Nadia,
tell you how I
87,
met her.
88, 89, when I was modeling before I became an actor, you probably saw her out in LA.
No, no, I met Nadia, believe it or not, it was like 86, through a hairdresser. His
Yeah.
name was, and ask her about it. She used to love this man. His name was Daley Henderson. He was like a famous hairdresser here in Hollywood. I met him on the street. He's like, hey, I want to do your hair. I'm like, what the heck you want to do with my hair? And he just did this crazy, like, I don't know what the heck he did, but next thing I knew, I had hair that looked like yours. And I remember meeting China at the salon many times, and she was always so lovely,
Yeah.
So please give her my love. I
I
love
will.
that woman.
I will. Thank you so much.
Question,
Yeah.
because I know people may want to hear this. Billy, how did you get started in this modeling thing? I mean, like, when did it all begin?
It's I gotta it's amazing. I mean, it's really an amazing story. But I was, at some point I was at university. I was studying political science. I thought I was going to law school. Somewhere during my sophomore year, my brother was doing soap operas in New York. I would come home for Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. I'd go visit him on the set. I started to get bitten by the bug. I didn't never knew anybody in the business. And I started coming to the set of when he was doing The Doctors and when he was doing Knots Landing, and I was sort of bitten by the bug, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to graduate and go to law school. I think maybe I'll graduate, take a year off, and take my first acting class in New York and see how it feels, see how it goes. But I was very, very, secretly very, very excited about it. And my brother was represented by the great Michael Bloom from J. Michael Bloom
J.
and Associates.
Michael Blue.
And he said, why don't you come home for Thanksgiving and go by Michael's office and have a conversation with him and, talk to him about, what the business is like I had questions for him about who I should study acting with, so on and so forth. And she said, I was in the meeting And I had already met Bloom several times, but I was in his office officially having a meeting about not going to law school and becoming an actor. He's like, so you want to be an actor? I said, yeah. He goes, what's your plan? I said, I'm finishing my senior year and I'm lifeguarding on Long Island, my last summer on the beach. I'll move in here after the beach closes on Labor Day. I'm going to get an apartment. I'm going to live with my brother Steven and live with my best friend Chris. And he goes, what are you going to do to support yourself? And I said, well, I bartended my way through college, so I'm going to bartend. It's perfect. I work at night. I'm available during the day for classes and for auditions. And he said, would you ever think about modeling? And I was like, do you think I could? And he said, I don't know, but would you say, is that something you would consider? And I was like, hell yeah, if you think if you think so. He goes, go down the hallway. I just hired Davian Littlefield from Click, and she's my liaison to the modeling world. She knows all about that. I want you to talk to Davian. So I go down to Davian's office, and she looks at me. She says, so you want to be a model? And I'm like, he's the guy. I don't know. Do you think I can? Should I? I don't know. She goes, I just left Click, and I work for Bloom. My girlfriend Nadia just left Click, and she runs a new company, a new modeling agency called Men Model Management. Yeah. She doesn't even have an office yet. She's working out of her living room. She calls Nadia, and Nadia says, send him down. I get on the subway. I go to Nadia's living room. She's sitting at a desk in her living room. She looks at me. She starts asking me a couple of questions. So you want to be a model? I'm like, if you say so. And there was a model there. Only other guy in the room named Jeffrey Herman. He was sitting on the couch, and he and Nadia start saying, Bruce would love him. Bruce would love this guy. Bruce would love him so much. And then Jeffrey says to me, you know who Bruce is, right? And I'm like, no. And he goes, Bruce Weber. And I go, sorry, I don't know who that is. And they start laughing, and they're like, oh my God, Bruce is really going to love this guy. Like,
yeah, those are always the best ones.
So she calls up Bruce and goes, I got this guy here. He's in college. He's graduating. He thought he wanted to go to law school. Now he wants to become an actor. And he lifeguards on this beach on Long Island. And he's not even done with college yet. He's just like standing in front. I really have this hunch about this guy. He's like, send him over. I'm just hanging out in the studio taking some pictures right now. Send him over. And I go over there to Bruce's studio. I now go to the Late Street studio. I go in. He's got the do-rag on. Yeah. And he's going, so your name is Billy? I go, yeah. He goes, so you want to be a model? I go, yes. Okay, yes. And you want to be an actor? And you study political science? I go, how do you know my life story? Nadia just hung up the phone 10 minutes ago. This guy knows I'm not going to law school. I want to be an actor. I'm going to model. He knows the whole story. By the way, before I went there, I said to Nadia, I have no money and I'm starving. I said, can I borrow $10 from you to get in the subway? And I'm really hungry. I need a sandwich. And she's like, she handed me the $10 and she looked at Jeffrey Herman. She goes, somehow I feel like this is going to be a good investment. And I snapped the $10. I went to the deli downstairs. I jumped in the subway. I went to Bruce. Wasn't with Bruce for more than 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I go back to my brother's apartment. The phone rings. My brother answers one of the wall phones. This is 1985, 1986. Answers one of the wall phones. Hello, Nadia. For Billy. Oh, okay. It's for you. And he hands me the phone, and she goes, I told you Bruce was going to love you. Congratulations. You just booked Calvin. I literally went from Michael Bloom to Davian Littlefield to Nadia Shahrik to Bruce Weber to Calvin Klein in 4 hours. And I shot it in Zuma Beach a couple of months later. And I made more money on that shoot, 11 days shooting. You know what the rates were back then. Plus all the message, fragrance cards, billboards, bus shelters, magazines, domestic, international. I made more money in that shoot than my father made as a teacher in 3 years. Yeah. This is the amazing blessing. I paid Nadia her commission. I paid my taxes. I went right to the bank, to the Nassau Educators Federal Credit Union, and I wiped out all of my college loans. I wasn't graduated from college for 6 months. All my loans were paid off. And I still had like $40,000 left over. Back then, that was enough money to support me for like a year and a half. So I literally went from Michael to Davian to Nadia to Bruce to Calvin to paying off my college loans on a day where Michael Bloom said, you sure you want to bartend? Maybe you might want to consider modeling. Every word of that is true. Every word of that is true.
That is the best. I never knew the whole story. I mean, I knew about a little bit of it, from what Nadia has told me, because, we've all been family for so many years. But listen to what you just said. That is so interesting to me. You made more money in those 11 days than your father made in 3 years.
Yeah, with all
Can
of the youth.
anyone in this generation say that? Because you know, we're living in a generation where you know the best word in bookings these days is buyouts.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything is a buyout. You know,
yeah,
media buys are like out the window, like billboard, like you just said, billboard, POP, POS, transit, national consumer, all out the window. So wait, so you did that, and then did you ever go to Europe?
I did. I went to very soon. Nadia sent me to Milan, and I was with fashion, and I was working with
Oh,
Luigi, and I bounced back and forth. Yeah, I was working with Luigi, and I was bouncing back and forth
Luigi.
between Paris and Milan with a guy named Michael Lanza and Tim Easton and
Yeah.
Robert Zeem and of course Shannon Greer, who is still one of my closest friends today. And we were we had a very
Shannon.
we took the overnight train from Milan to Paris, and they wouldn't let us check into the hotel. We got off the train at like 6 in the morning, and they wouldn't let us into the hotel. It was like a hostel until like 3 in the afternoon. So we said, can we leave our bags here? And they said yes. And we both looked at each other at the same time. And we said, Eiffel Tower. He's like, yes, Eiffel Tower. So instead of going with my girlfriend or my fiance or my wife, my first trip to the Eiffel Tower was with my modeling buddy Shannon, and we went right to the top to go to the
Oh,
observatory. And it was like, whatever, however soon it opened in the morning. We were there at like 7:30, taking pictures at the Eiffel Tower.
tell
Yeah,
me, how was that relation with? I mean, because you know we had that generation with all these great characters, you know, that we had back in the days as far as bookers.
yeah.
And boy, Luigi,
Yeah, he's
Luigi,
a legend.
man.
I was, I had a great time. I was in Bar Magenta with Shannon one night when this girl came walking in, and he said, "Hey, Billy, this is my friend from New York, Elizabeth Billy," and it was Elizabeth Saltzman. And
Ah,
ever since that night in Bar Magenta, we became like thick as thieves, best besties. And to this day, whenever I go to London, I spend time with her. But it's, the whole modeling industry is triggered. There's so many amazing stories. Like I have two or three others if you want me to indulge your audience and tell them.
well,
One of
listen,
the,
you just mentioned someone who is so dear to my heart, which is what you need to do is later on, whenever you get a chance and you speak to Elizabeth, just say to her, someone's told me to say to you, EPP.
yeah,
Just let's leave it at that. You and I
okay,
will get into that one
yeah.
later because that's our little code word for each other.
Elizabeth
EPP,
Reese.
Elizabeth. I love that woman.
Yeah, yeah. So one of my fun stories from when I was modeling is I was booked a lot by Charles Tracy to work for Filene's Basement, and I booked a gig.
Filene's
I
Basement,
was doing
remember
catalogs
those?
for Filene's Basement, and Charles Tracy and his staff loved me, and they were booking me on 568 Broadway in his studio all the time. A couple times a month, I worked for Macy's for them, for Bloomingdale's, and for Filene's Basement. And I was flying out from New York, and I had a layover in Chicago, and they said when you get on the plane and when you change planes in Chicago, the leg from Chicago to Hawaii, you're going to be sitting next to the girl that you're working with, the girl that you're modeling with. I said, cool. So I get on the plane, I transfer, I sit down, the seat next to me is empty. All of a sudden I look and I see this unbelievably gorgeous girl walking towards me. And she sits down and introduces herself to me. I said, where are you coming in from? And she said, Chicago. I live here in Chicago. I said, oh, you're not connecting here? She said, no, I live here in Chicago. I said, cool. I said, no New York for you, huh? She goes, no, because I'm in college. I go, well, I just graduated. I said, I just finished college like a couple months ago. I said, where do you go to school? She said, I go to Northwestern University. And I'm like, I don't know if you probably know, Northwestern is like that far away from being Harvard. Okay, I go to Northwestern. I said, really? I said, what are you studying there? She said, I'm a chemical engineering major. And I said, I'm ready to propose. This girl's at Northwestern. She's a chemical engineering major, and she looks like this. You got to be kidding me. And we're going to go to Hawaii together. I wish I had the picture with me to show you. And I said, she goes, I'm thinking about taking some time off because if you're a like a marketing major or a communications major, you could miss a couple of days of class and still work modeling. But if you're a chemical engineering major, you miss one class, two classes, you fall way behind, you can't catch up.
Right,
You're
right.
like swimming against the tide, you can't do that. And I'm like wagging my finger and I'm like, you listen here, young lady, you get, because I had just graduated. Your education is more important. You finish that degree. You have to finish that degree. It's way more important than anything modeling could ever do for you. And sure enough, the next semester she took off. She never went back to college. And that person was Cindy Crawford.
How cool. Okay, now that's an amazing story. I never knew that story.
Chemical engineering major at Northwestern, did a year there, finished that second semester, and then took a year off for a sabbatical, a gap year in the middle of it, and then just everything just started. She took off like a skyrocket.
Oh my! I remember. I don't know if Nadia or I booked you with Matthew Ralston. You did a story
Matthew
with
was
Cindy.
very good friends with China. He directed a couple of China's videos,
Yeah.
in fact.
Very different. I get together with Matthew once a week at least. We
When
get
I'm in
together.
LA next time, I want to see Jazz and I want to see Matthew Ralston.
Well, next time you're in town, let's do it because I get together with those. Not more Jazzy, more with Maddie. Jazzy's older now.
All your old friends. I see on your Instagram you posting with that whole crew of the guys that were my era.
Yeah.
The guys that were like the early, mid, late 80s guys who are now whatever they call them, the silver foxes or the gray, whatever they are, but they still look gorgeous.
Oh, a lot of them. A lot of my boys have stayed, they've stayed current, they've stayed in shape. Everybody knows, my best friend, Todd Gordon. Yeah, that's my brother. Steve Lyon, I keep in touch with Stevie. One of the great photographers. I do incredible work with him.
We were playing basketball in that indoor court on Barrington in that huge
Wait. B, come on, let me tell that story because that's one of the greatest stories in history. We don't play basketball. Billy Work was with us as well.
Yeah.
And we go to Barrington to play basketball. You had your brothers with you. We were playing indoor, and then either one of your brothers came in the gym and go, fight! And we go outside and we throw in blows. People are coming at us from every corner. People are knocking people out. Remember, they ran us out of there.
Yeah,
it was like a crazy brawl, broke out.
Exactly.
Then I'm like, I wonder if Vinny's going to remember that story.
We were playing with guys that were younger than us. We were getting a little bit longer in the tooth. We were probably, probably early 30s.
Yeah.
And these guys were like 21, 22-year-old guys that clearly had played basketball in high school, club, AAU, and maybe even in college. And they were going a little extra aggressive on the inbound, and they were like uptight on you on the D. And we were staying with them. And then one thing led to another, and just all of a sudden a brawl.
We were busting them up. No, we were busting them up, and they were not having it. And then, when the brawl broke out, I was like...
They messed with a couple of people I was a wrestler in college, and my brother's crazy and a great fighter and had to defend himself. And he was... Anyway, so I just wanted to know if you remember.
I will never forget that day because we had a blast. It was scary, when it was happening because, we were getting ran off the court by like 30 people were coming at us, throwing shit at us, and we just trying to get to our cars.
Where is Shannon? We have somebody
Shannon's supposed to join us, and I'm looking at an invite right now. Mr. Greer, there he is. Shannon, boom. I've accepted Shannon. Okay, Shannon, we just accepted you, so where is he? Would he come up on this? Because I just accepted Shannon to join us.
There he is.
Holy cow, Shannon!
How are you?
Are you in Hudson?
Oh,
where are
my
you?
God!
I'm in Hudson.
Oh,
all right, I gotta come up with a
Shannon. It's been so... Look at Shannon! Oh, my God!
How are you, Omar?
Dude, so wait, do you guys keep in touch all the time when you're in the city?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
and Shannon, you're shooting some pictures right now.
Yes, I am. And
Nadia sends a hug, Shannon. Nadia sends a hug.
Oh, yes. Nod, how are you? Yeah, but you're in Hudson, and I live right around the corner from Jackie. You remember Jackie? Jackie
the Booker?
Thomas? No, Jackie Thomas. Somebody from Panama.
Shannon, we talked about that. I told you he had my entire New York house in his basement.
Yes.
Oh my, dude, we'll talk about it. I
Yeah.
have some great stories with Jackie when I was 15 years old.
Yes. That's
Jackie and I got arrested in my own neighborhood outside my house because the police didn't think that I live in that house.
yes.
And they
Oh.
ran after us, and Jackie ran home. But he didn't know what the hell was going on. And I kept telling the cop, dude, I live right there. Oh, yeah, sure, you live right there. I'm like, I live
Oh.
right there. And Jackie takes off. I go, dude, don't take off to your house. Go get my mom. Jackie Thomas, you took me back on that, Shannon. Look
Yeah.
at you, Shannon. I'm so proud of you, brother, what you're doing with your photography. I
Thanks.
follow you. I see what you're doing. And just stoked that you and Billy are still. Every time I think of Billy, I think of you. Just so you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like you guys are tied up. Like
No,
how did this? How did
yeah, no,
this friendship begin?
I guess we went to Milan, really. We were staying
Yeah.
in this,
January of
London.
1986.
yeah.
January of 1986, Nadia sent a group of us over, and it was Michael Lanza, Shannon, me, Tim Easton, Robert Zeem. We all became friends over there with another group of guys, and we bounced back and forth between Milan and Paris. I told them the story, Shannon, about how we got to Paris that morning and we went to the Eiffel Tower together
Yeah. Yes. That
at
was
like
wonderful.
7:30 in the morning.
Not only that,
That was amazing.
but we went and had like our first American breakfast in like a month and a half at a French hotel.
Yeah,
And we were just so
yeah. We had like
excited.
scrambled eggs. You couldn't find that in Europe.
Yeah.
That
We used
is
to go to this. We used to go to this bar all the time. It was really funny. And the bar that I told you Shannon introduced me to. Huh?
Parmesan.
We were talking about. Okay. She's giving me cue cards over here.
oh,
We would go
that's
to
our producer, buddy. Have
yeah,
some respect.
yeah. I need an earpiece like I'm an anchorman so she can feed me my lines. We go to this bar where I told you he introduced me to Elizabeth Saltzman, and we were always trying to be as popular as possible with the Italian girls. And he told this funny story where the Italian girls didn't speak any English, and Shannon sort of could translate for me. He was sort of pretended like he understood a little bit of Italian, but we all spoke the international language, if you know what I mean. And these girls one day they said to him, Shannon, what's wrong with Billy? Like some days he's really happy and smiling and he's talking a lot and he's having a beer and he's really, really he's just so much fun to be around. And other times he's like, seems like he's down or, is everything okay? Did something happen? Did we do something to like offend him? And Shannon, unbeknownst to me, goes, no, Billy has this condition from his childhood. He grew up on a farm in Illinois, and like one day he was like shoeing a horse, and the horse bucked and it hit him in the head, and he has like a little bit of a thing. He has like a little bit of a condition where he's got brain damage. So these girls are going around for like 3 weeks thinking, I guess I wasn't that. I don't know what I was doing wrong.
You were pretty
Finally,
convincing. You were pretty
finally,
convincing.
sorry.
You were
I
pretty
was
convincing.
Well, I was just a very good actor playing a part that I had no idea that I was playing. And then finally, like 3 weeks later, the girls get me in the corner and like, Billy, we don't understand. Like, Shannon said this thing about you, and you seem like you're so sweet and you're so normal and you're so charming and you're so funny. And like, but Shannon said you had this problem where you got hit in the head when you were a boy and you have brain damage.
And I forgot to tell. I forgot my.
You forgot to tell him that it was a joke. And how did I pull this off? Believe me, I'm not that good of an actor. I guess I just a freaking bore.
Now, question: were you guys while you were in Paris? Were you represented in Paris?
I was represented by Bananas.
Patricia and Sophie.
Yeah.
I was with
Yeah.
Passion. I was with Fashion in Milan and Passion in Paris.
Well,
Evelyn.
Passion was who was Passion? Who was Passion again?
Evelyn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Bananas was my family. That's Patricia. Of course, she's now
Yeah.
retired, and Sophie, boy, Sophie. You already know,
Yeah.
Shannon. Sophie
And
was
they
a
were
trip.
wonderful. Yes.
She's
So they were
retired now,
wonderful.
living in. I think she lives in Ibiza now.
Okay.
Were you guys ever like? Tell me about like. Were you guys ever like the kind of guys like when you went into the office in New York or Paris? Remember the charts, the modeling charts?
Yeah.
You remember like, hey, I'm just going to go through my chart, and you're like looking at your chart, and you could sit with your booker and go, hey, what is this? This is in yellow. This is in green. This is in, in red. Like, oh, that means that got canceled. That's an option, and these are the days you're working. Dude, I miss charts.
Yeah.
I take charts over text or computer anytime.
Yeah, I
Because it's
remember
right
looking
there
at
in front of
I
your
remember
face.
looking at my chart and then comparing it to Tim Easton's, and man, Tim Easton's was just full.
Yeah. The
Like
world is
always
different.
on some great trip, man. It was amazing.
It was always green,
Yes,
like
yes,
green,
yes,
green, green, green. I
yeah.
just love it because, we had it by months, January, February. Sometimes you see a chart that's like, oh, February looks empty. And then like March, you have all these green in June. And you're like, oh my God, you already know you're working, 2 months from now or 3 months from now. I bloody love those days, man. I miss charts, and just the old ways of the business. Question to both of you. Photographers, because Shannon, now you being a photographer. What Shannon, what got you into becoming a photographer? Is
I
it
mean, when I went to college, I was a painting and fine art major, and then I was out of college for a few years, and just working with Stephen Meisel and Mario Testino and Arthur Elgort. Arthur was really inspirational, definitely for sure. I just loved the spirit, the engagement, and working in collaboration with people. So I ended up going back to college and getting my degree in
This
photography,
camera is much better.
and then after that, I started assisting, and I assisted for 5 years, and then I went on my own, and it was
now,
great.
Billy? You got to work a lot, loads with Arthur Elbert.
I worked with Arthur, not a lot. I worked with Arthur a little bit. I worked with Bruce a few times. I worked with
Walter,
I worked with Bill King a few
I
times, but my number
remember.
one, for sure, no question, was Patrick. I worked with Patrick Demoshely a lot, and he was my favorite. I worked with Sheila Metzner a lot. I
I
worked with Sheila Metzner a lot.
Isn't it crazy after all these years? I just met her this year, early this year. We had the best time. I met her at the Getty Museum. What an
Amazing,
amazing
amazing. I
talent she
became
is.
like a family member with Sheila, but my favorite shoots were like the editorial that I did with Patrick Demoshelier. We would just go simple. We would just go to the Hamptons and we'd go shoot out in some estate in the Hamptons or out on the beach in the Hamptons. We would do night, we would do day, we would do interior, exterior. Good group of people, and it was editorial, so it wasn't a lot of money, but it was for Vogue or for GQ. And
Yeah.
I always joke. Uh, I guess I can say this online, but I always joke that I gave. I don't know if I can say this, but I would say I gave good head because there would be a feature of like Cindy Crawford's beautiful face, and then down the beach there would be two guys talking like 50 yards down the beach, and it would be the back of my head. And I said that's why they hired me. They would be doing a close up of Cindy Crawford standing there with Christy Turlington, and Shannon and I would be standing down the beach like we were the guys in the shot, but like they were featuring their beauty. And even for GQ, for Vogue magazine, I understood if it was Naomi and I was 100 yards down the beach, but for GQ, could you at least feature the guy? No, Cindy Crawford,
Yeah,
front
well,
and center.
listen, I just ran into some pictures of you, Billy, with Naomi, some great shots with Naomi. I just don't know who shot them.
Uh,
Pamela
Pamela
Hansen.
Hansen,
Yeah.
it's the one in the car window when I'm.
Love that one.
That's Pamela. I worked with Pamela several times. But my number one, in terms of the nicest guy, the most creative and talented that I worked with the most was Patrick and Sheila. Of course, I worked with Avedon once. I worked with Annie Leibovitz a couple of times. I don't even remember what it was. It doesn't stand out
Don't,
of
hey,
my mind.
Shannon, don't you love it how casually he says that? Oh, I worked with Abaddon once. I worked with Sheila once, and I worked with. Yeah, it's like, come on, Billy. These are like
Well,
icons.
those were the gods. But back then when I first started, I had heard of the name Avedon. I knew who Richard Avedon was. He was kind of a household name. He was the one American fashion photographer that, if you weren't in the business, you would know. And in 1985, when these guys were saying, Bruce Weber would just love you, and I was saying, who's Bruce Weber? They were laughing because why was I? I was a college student studying
Of
political
course.
science. But one time I'll tell you a funny story about Bruce. I was working with Bruce, and we were doing Oaks by Foray, Foray
Oh,
jeans.
yeah.
And I walked out of the shower and I was dripping wet and I had nothing on but my jeans, no socks, no shoes, no shirt. And they like had styled it like the front of the jeans were unbuttoned and I was dripping wet. And I walk out into the set and the girl walks out, jean jacket, shorts cut off short, jean shorts cut off with a jean jacket. The jacket's unbuttoned a little bit, revealing. And she comes out dripping wet. And we're standing in front of Bruce and he's shooting and we're just doing our thing, looking at the camera, looking at each other, holding hands. I'm putting my arm around her. And I say, he said, I'm just not taking any direction. I'm just naturally, instinctually just looking at her, looking at the camera, holding her hand, kissing the side of her head. He goes, pick her up. And I turn towards her and she jumps into my arms and I'm holding her in my arms. And we're looking at the camera, we're looking to each other's eyes and they're alternating, looking at the camera. And then he says, kiss her, kiss her. And I don't even know. I remember this is 40 years ago, okay, audience? So he goes, kiss her, and I'm like, I don't even know her name, and I go to look at her, and she's like coming in with she's coming in with her head tilted, her eyes closed, and we do this big kiss for the camera. He's like, I got it, I love it, I got it, I love it. We go, they bring in the next models, I dry off, I put on my street clothes, waiting for the next change. I sit down, she's got a robe on, she's got her hair up in a towel, she's reading a book. I said, hey, how you doing? My name is Billy. She goes, how you doing? I go, you live in New York? It's similar to the Cindy Crawford story. You live in New York? She goes, no, I live in Boston. I go, oh. I said, what are you going to move to New York eventually? And she goes, yeah, when I graduate. And I go, uh, I'm thinking, wow, she's a college girl like me. I just graduated college she goes, I go, what do you plan to do when you graduate? And she goes, I'm definitely going to college. I'm definitely going to go to college. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm sorry. Where do you go to school now? And she goes, I'm just finishing high school. I'm like, I immediately like, but again, this is 1985. And, she was like 18 but she was, high school. And I was, I just thought like, if that's why everything in the game has changed, right? You can't do that anymore. And that girl was Uma Thurman. Yeah,
Oh my.
that was Uma. So I figured I saw her sitting there after we did the shot. I said, I just kissed her. I might as well know what her name is. I said, so you live in New York? She goes, no, I'm in Boston. I go, what are you doing up there? She goes, I go to school. I go, great. What's your plans for when you graduate? She goes, oh, I'm definitely going to college. And I'm like, where do you go to school now? She goes, I'm going to college next year. My dad's a professor at Harvard or something. And I said, I just graduated from college. And I said, I'm Billy. She said, hey, how you doing? I'm Uma. I wish people could go to my Instagram and see that. You could see the picture of me with Naomi and the picture of me with Filene's basement with Cindy and that picture from Oaks by Foray. I wish
I love that picture. I remember that picture. I
she's up.
completely remember.
I'm holding her up on my waist and she's looking towards the camera in a very pouty way with her head tilted and her very pouty lips. And I'm like leaning in to kiss her on the jaw. Yeah.
That is a great. I mean, dude, I'm still tripping here looking at Shannon, man. It's like, this is tripping me out because, yeah, hey, you guys had a great run, man, as models. You guys had a really great run. I mean, and every time I thought of, either one of you, it's like, okay, if it's Billy, okay, Shannon will be right around the corner. If it's Shannon, oh, Billy will be around the corner. I always put you guys, Billy, Shannon, Derek Harris.
Derek.
Remember Derek?
First, yes.
Ate.
Shannon's
Yeah.
really good buddies.
Ate Atema. Remember
Yes, I do. I
Atema?
do.
Fatima?
Like, I love him just because I always love his name. And I remember, I think I got him something with Koto Bolofo, because he worked with Koto Bolofo, who's one of my dearest, loving photographers that I love in the world.
And Brian and Scott Connell and John Scudden.
Scott
John
Connell. I
Scudden.
never met Scott Connell.
Billy
Never
Beatty and
These
met.
I
guys were
worked with.
like our big brothers when we were coming into the business. He was like already established and working. But it was a great era to be in New York at that time. In that time of the 80s, the club life was great. The restaurant life was great.
Yeah.
The social scene was fantastic. The girls were making way more money. I mean, we were like living like check to check and happy to do it, happy to do it. But I was lucky, you know, we all got a shot to do a little GQ, a little bit of Vogue, a little bit of advertising, but it was, it was, you know, when I would go home to Massapequa and I would be in the bars, they're like, hey, did you see this guy? He was just in Vogue magazine last month with Cindy Crawford. All right, he was in Vogue. You know what you got paid? Tell him what you got paid. Tell him what you got paid. He got paid like $500,000. I'm
Yeah,
like, no, I got paid
but you know what?
I got paid
It's funny that you
I got
mentioned
paid
that.
$150 to do editorial with Cindy
I
Crawford.
know they don't
It was
know that. People
$150 a
in the
day.
business, yeah,
He's like,
people that
hey,
are outside our industry, they
Vogue
don't understand.
magazine, Cindy Crawford. She got fees. This guy's worth a couple million. He's worth a couple million now. Come on. They had no
You know,
idea we were getting paid $100 a day.
this is funny because yeah, I mean, people outside our industry don't understand that editorial
Well,
is
the
what
rates,
pays the least.
editorial, catalog, advertising.
Exactly.
Catalog is amazing. Advertising is king.
And then
Well,
they're
you
always
just said
saying to
something
me,
really
you
interesting
get
when
to
you
keep the
said,
clothes,
yeah, we
right?
were living check to check. It's not that we were living check to check. The work was so constant that we kept taking it for granted because the work was always there. So, hey, okay, I made 30 grand. Oh, shit, I'm going to blow that 30 grand because I'm going to make it again next month. So the money, nobody was like, oh, let me save up for a rainy day. It never rained. It was like, it never rained. It's gonna the party's gonna go on, and it's funny because I see a lot of models from the 80s or 90s who possibly are not doing as financially well these days, and they still believe the hype of the 90s. And it's like, bro, that's not there anymore. Like, I got a lot of guys who call me sometimes. They're like, hey, homie, I'm thinking of making a comeback. I'm like, bro, whole different ball game
Yeah,
out there.
the rates are
This is
totally
not.
different.
Yeah, it's
Not
a
like the
whole
80s.
different ball game. It's not just like, oh, I could get some pictures taken. I could call Shannon to take some pictures of me and let's see what happens. No, 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 brother. Doesn't work.
Shannon, we're losing your voice,
Yeah, we're
your Wi-Fi.
losing your audio, Shannon.
You were just saying something a second ago too. I wanted you to jump in, Shannon. Go ahead. Doesn't Shannon have a beautiful studio? We lost your Wi-Fi. Did you mute by accident?
I muted by
There you
accident.
go. Now you're
Okay.
back.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hi, Charlotta.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, beauty. How are you?
We're heading to Brooklyn.
We've got to babysit kids, not our own, but
Where
kids.
where are you, Billy? We have to hook up.
I'm in Nadia's office, and I'm driving back out to
Not in
Town
front of
Ridge.
me.
All right, I'll see you
Charlotta, are you going to
soon.
be in the city? Are you guys going to be in the city the rest of the
Yeah.
week?
Yeah, Thursday,
Yeah.
and then we head back.
Yeah.
Yeah, come by
My
Oscar.
I wanted to ask you because my daughter Jameson is graduating in May,
Yeah,
and her boyfriend, he's an abstract painter, and she's a photographer and a sculptor, and they're going to stay in LA for a few months, and then they're coming to Brooklyn. So I wanted to make sure we all got together for dinner because I'd love
yeah,
for you to meet them.
yeah. Let's do
Excellent.
that. Would be great.
I
Yeah,
can't wait.
next generation.
See,
Yeah.
I'll see you all soon. Thanks for having me on.
Good,
All right,
good.
Shannon.
Hey, good for joining,
Great to
Shannon.
see
Love you,
you.
Safe
man. I come
drive.
to New York next month. I'm gonna look you up.
Oh, please do. Please. All right, I'll
Big
see you
respect, big
soon.
Sorry
love,
that we have
brother.
to leave.
So do we want to?
Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
I hope I see you. I'll be here for another like 10 days, so we'll definitely
Okay.
connect before I
Let's
go
make
back.
it
Yeah.
I'm
happen.
going out for Jameson's graduation at USC,
All right.
so
See
I'll be
y'all.
around for a couple weeks.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's
All right.
looking good, man.
Bye-bye.
So how much longer do
Yeah,
we want to take some questions, or are there questions?
yeah. There is questions. Billy, this is where it gets tricky for me because obviously this is all new to me. This is all unscripted. We just go for it. And I'm always trying to figure out, like, okay, where are the questions? I see them, but then I have to like
Where
stare
do we
at the
find the
screen.
questions, and how do we know how many people are on the stream right now? And
Oh,
how do we
there's
know where the
people.
questions are, if there are questions? I don't know.
Well, I see a lot of waves and a lot of like, hey guys, but like
So would it be just in
questions.
the comments? Yeah, the comments. Oh, so it would just be so if it just says that people are joining, but let's see if there's any questions. Keep our eyes on the questions.
I'm looking to see if like I could do this. Okay, boom. Do I see questions if I go to this account? I don't know how to find the questions. I mean,
I guess
okay, send a
some people
request
have
an
comments.
hour ago. Who is this? Somebody said they sent a request.
Wait. Here you
So
go.
let me see who this is.
Billy, read that for me. Billy, did you study with who? Or did I study acting? Yeah, I studied.
John Patrick Maloney.
Yeah, I studied acting. Somebody asked a question about did I study? I studied acting while I was modeling. I was sort of after Binghamton, I came to New York to meet Michael Bloom to strategize about becoming an actor. And he said you could you could support yourself bartending or modeling. What do you want it to be? And all of a sudden, on that very same day, I booked Calvin Klein. I said, "Wow, this is fun. This is easy. I'm making a lot of money. Let's keep doing this." But I studied with some people at HB Studios. I studied with some people at the Actor Studio, Marilyn Freed. I studied with a woman named Alice Spivak, which was one of my very favorite people to study with. Just an absolute genius who could always see things in the material that I could never see. She really trained me to look beyond the text and read into the subconscious and into the subtext of the material. What was really going on in terms of the intention of the character in that scene. But yeah, I studied for all the years I was modeling. I studied for probably 3 years, and then I signed with Michael Bloom. That meeting I had with Michael Bloom that led to Calvin Klein was in '85. I didn't sign with Michael Bloom until '88, and then I got on my second audition. I got my first part, which is another crazy story. It's an Oliver Stone story. Should I jump in?
Someone just asked, what was your favorite ad that you ever did as a model?
It was probably, I mean, it would have to be. It would have to be the Calvin Klein ad because I had
I
so
was
much
just
fun doing
about to
it, and I
say.
worked with Bruce, and I was in Malibu, and we were shooting at Zuma, and I met a bunch of amazing people. But again, working with Patrick for Vogue was a lot of fun. Working with Patrick for GQ was a lot of fun. I loved working for Charles Tracy for Macy's and Bloomingdale's and Filene's Basements. I loved Sheila Metzner. She had me working with a 15 or 16-year-old Naomi Campbell, which was amazing. When she was a little girl, she was like a 16-year-old girl in New York, very early in her career. I met her. But yeah, when I went to go do, the funny thing was when I went to go do, again, a 1980 story, but when I went to go do Calvin, I was staying at the Shangri-La, and I was to report to the suite in the penthouse of the Shangri-La at like 8:30 in the morning. And I walk in, the door opens, and everyone's running cables by and running lights by. And there's people hustle and bustle. It's like a movie set. And I said, I'm here to see Bruce. They said, just go out on the terrace. And I have my O'Neill backpack from the beach and everything. And I open the door onto the terrace. And I'm not lying to you. I mean, it was like United Colors of Benetton. It was like Baskin Robbins 31 flavors. There was like 12 guys and like 40 girls. And there were Asian girls, there were white girls, there were African American girls, there were European girls, there were Russian girls.
Hold that thought right there, because someone just asked, what is your take on the race issues in the 80s? That's a great, I'd like to see how you answer that, because I have my own idea, my own answer to the race thing, and it was never, I've been colorblind all my life, so it's never been a race thing with me. You're good looking, you're good looking. I never looked at color, but you just brought that up about, going into this set, and there was all ethnicities there. So one of the people who joined just asked, what is your take, Billy Baldwin, on the race issues? How do you feel about it in the 80s when you were
I'm
working?
not sure how to answer that. It was fairly integrated. I mean, there was that industry as well as film and television have always been much more accepting
Yeah.
of other or different or diverse or people that were straight or they were homosexual or they were Asian or they were black or they were white. It's much more integrated today, and I like the way, like back then it was like sort of a conventionally American good-looking person, and now it's more sort of an offbeat. It's become sort of more offbeat and more street and more ethnic, which I like. I like giving. It's still not going to work if you're 5'2", but I like the fact that it isn't like all the Americana, like the Elle McPhersons and the Cindy Crawfords and the girls. I like when they're going for people that are more ethnic and more street. You know what I mean? That
You know,
I think you can relate to them.
I tell you this, I get you what you just said. I loved the fact that I said it on the last podcast where, I mean, we had a formula. And you just said something interesting. You said, you're 5'2", it's not going to work. Actually, that's not really true because these days, Instagram opened up Pandora's box.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone is a model. Everybody's a photographer. You just got to be hot. Be hot at whatever it is you do. This is what I tell people. Get hot in whatever it is you're into. Anything, whether it's music, dancing, writing, whatever it is. Get yourself hot. Get some pictures. Trust me, somebody's going to pay for you. It has nothing to do with, oh my God, he has a great look or she has a great look. Or, oh, she's too short or too. No, that's all out the window these days because I see a lot of girls right now and guys that are 5'8" or 5'4", and they're working as,
You know the business now
influence.
better. You know the business now better than I do. But I'll tell our audience a story. Paul Rowland launched Kate Moss's career because Bruce was shooting Calvin Klein, and he was featuring Mark Wahlberg, who back then was Marky Mark with the great abs, and they needed a girl that was not going to, flat-footed would be 4 or 5 inches taller than him because I don't know how tall Mark Wahlberg is, but he's not 6'2". He's like 5'8", and that's what helped launch Kate Moss's career is that they found the right girl opposite Mark Wahlberg in the Calvin campaign, and Bruce absolutely fell in love with her and launched a massive mega career for her. And she was not 5'10" or 5'11", and
No, no.
it was because of Mark Wahlberg's height that she got discovered in the first place.
That's, I mean, listen, it was, she came in at the perfect time. It was perfect timing when she came in. She was perfect. I mean, the stuff she shot with Bruce, obviously, is Bruce. And then, the stuff she went on to do with Testino. Because I know her and Mario were very, very tight. And they created some incredible, incredible image. I miss the shooters. I'm like big on the shooters.
Yeah.
And I miss, like, I'm so glad Nadia has created this platform for us to highlight some of the shooters that we love and miss because there's so many brilliant shooters. I call them masters who really gave us gave us that light, by their style of shooting. You were able to blow up by working with, listen, you work with Bruce, your career took off. That's the generation we come from. You work with one guy, he gives you 2-3 pages in a magazine, boom.
Yeah.
You're making crazy money, which in today's era, I have a hard time trying to figure out, like, how do you blow up a model these days what's the media? I mean, all that's available is Instagram because we don't have a reoccurring magazine that people really follow. Like GQ has become more entertainment. There's no more details. There's no more Esquire. Vogue, I don't even know. It's like, it's all pretty much influencers, bloggers, content creators. I love those words. Those 3 words I love. Influencers,
It's like the
bloggers,
Wild West.
content creators. It's like, if you go on their pages, it's like I'm looking at pictures of you. It's all face, 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 face. My dog, my dog, my dog. My food, my food. Oh, walking into an airplane. Oh, getting off the airplane.
I
Oh,
love
going
doing
onto the beach.
this. I love telling in my Instagram. I tell stories about my childhood with my brothers, or my marriage with my wife, or raising my children, or what it was like to work with. I tell stories about behind the scenes, having dinner with Pacino, or working with De Niro. And I told the story. One of the stories I told is one that I like. I mentioned before. My launch into the movie business was very similar to my launch into the modeling industry. And on that
Yeah,
same
please
day,
share that because I
yeah,
don't know how that happened.
yeah, on the same day that I met Michael, Davian, Nadia, Bruce, and I booked Calvin on the same day, I now signed with Michael Bloom 3 years later after studying for a few years because I never did church theater, I never did summer stock theater, I never did high school plays. I took my first acting class after I graduated from college. So when I felt it was ready and I signed with my agent and I went out on my second audition, and my first audition was for a film called Blue Steel that was directed by Catherine Bigelow and cast by Brayman and Hopkins and produced by Oliver. And I didn't get the part. I was in the waiting room with Tom Sizemore, rest in peace, Tom.
Rest in peace, Tom.
And we had a talk, and he got the part. And Brayman and Hopkins told Oliver Stone, we had this kid come in today, and he had a great reading, and I really liked him, and we're casting Born on the 4th of July in 2 weeks. So on my next audition, my second audition, I now come in for another Oliver Stone project that he's now directing, and I walk in, and there's nobody there. There's no casting director, no producers, no writer, nobody. It's just me and Oliver. And he says, "Are you familiar with the material?" And I said, "Not only am I familiar with the material, I said, I know Ron Kovic personally." And he starts to laugh and smile at me, and that little crooked smile of his. And
Yeah.
he goes, "How do you know Ron Kovic?" I go, "I'm from Massapequa. I'm from his hometown. My father was his high school teacher. My father was his high school football coach. My best friend's father was his high school wrestling coach." I said, when he got shot in Vietnam and he was paralyzed and they shipped him back and he was in the Bronx VA, paralyzed for a long time, for like, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. He was in the Bronx VA.
Wow.
And my father would go to his hospital room to read to him. He would read the Sunday New York Times, the New Yorker, the
Right.
Atlantic. And my mother would say, "You're crazy if you think you're leaving these 6 kids here with me all day while you're in the Bronx with Ron. You got to take some of the kids." So my father would take me in the car with my brother Daniel, and we'd play with our like Tonka trucks when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old on the floor of his hospital in the Bronx VA when he was recovering from his wound in Vietnam. And Oliver his jaw was dropped. He was just like, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. And I said, "Look, even if I don't get the movie, I'd love to take you to Massapequa. We'll go to the high school. We'll go to his house. We'll go meet his neighbors. We'll go meet his friends. We'll meet his teachers, his coaches. We'll go to Krish's, the soda fountain there, All American Burger, the Nautilus Diner. I'll take you to the wrestling room where he wrestled in high school." And Oliver was just so stoned. I mean, so he was stoned. He was so stunned. Sorry, Oliver, I slept. He was so stunned, and he goes, "I'll see you in the Philippines. I'll see you in the Philippines." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you serious?" He goes, "I heard you're a prankster. You better not be joking about this." "Am I really in the movie?" He goes, "I'll see you in the Philippines." And before I left, he said one of the funniest lines of my career. I mean, I've had a lot of funny ones, but he looked at me, and again, he had this like little stoner smile on his face, and there was this long, awkward period of silence, it was so true. And he goes, "What is it with you Baldwin brothers, man? I mean, what is it with you Baldwin brothers?" I just looked at him kind of nervous. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I mean, you're good looking. I'll give you that. You're a good looking guy, but you're kind of goofy looking too." And all of a sudden, he gazed off into the sky like he had made a revelation, and he looked at me and he goes, "That's it. The Baldwin brothers. They've got goofy good looks." And I was like, "I'll take it. I'll take it." And I just walked out of the door and said, "See you in the Philippines." And he literally said, "They've got goofy good looks." And it's so true. My brother Steven, when he's not smiling, he looks like he could be in GQ. And when he's telling a story, he looks like Jim Carrey in the mask. It's
Yeah.
like he's good looking,
Yeah.
but he could be goofy looking, like the Baldwin brothers do
That is
have.
a great one.
Like,
Goofy,
"You're good
good
looking.
looking. I'm going to use that one.
You're kind of goofy looking too." Anyway, I
Not,
don't know. We're getting closer. I'd love to take some more questions. I just keep rambling with stories. Before we go, I just want to say special shout out and thanks to Eris and to Omar, and especially to Major. I'm at Major Models with Nadia right now, and they're letting me use the space here. And I have such. I met Nadia in 1985. She was like 24, 25 years old. She was working out of her living room, and since then, she handled my career. She handled, Haley's career. She's godmothering Haley's career, with all the stuff that my niece Haley's doing. And she's now working godmother with my daughter Brooks, who's just launching right now into the business too. And she's just been like a member of our family. She's been like a sister to me for decades now. It's kind of scary. She's sitting over there. She's hiding over there. But I just wanted to give a special shout out and a special thanks to Major Models in New York, and especially to Nadia and to you, Omar.
no, thank you. Someone just asked a question that said, do you have any history of working in London?
No, I went to London a couple of times. I didn't ever work there. If I even had an agent there, it was like a satellite. Even to this day, as an actor, when I was with Michael Bloom and when I was with CAA, I had some sort of satellite agent in London that represented me, and I never went there to spend a month to develop relationships there. I never went on auditions there. I never got a play in the West End. I never did any modeling there. It was Milan, and all over Italy, out of Milan and Paris and New York. And I didn't really do a lot of work out of LA until I started acting, of course.
No, of course. I remember it was a tough time. It was a tough time as far as making, like, to me was always like, wow, guys that were models turned actors. Like, you were one of the first pioneers of that, because that wasn't well accepted back in the days. You remember when they're like, oh, he's a model. No, he can't
But that's
act.
the weird thing, is that I was leaving college to come to New York to take my first acting class to pursue an acting career. And these people were all saying to me, do you want to support yourself bartending or modeling? So I was like, okay, I can make enough modeling in 3 days to pay my bills for 2 months if I do catalogs. So I'd rather do that than be working till 5 or 6 in the morning, 4 days a week. So yeah, I'll model, but I was never a model turned an actor. I was an actor pursuing an acting career and studying acting, and I was supporting myself as a model while I was pursuing my studies as an actor. Same thing people say with me as an activist. They're like, "Oh, you're an actor who became a celebrity, activist." And I'm like, "No, I was an activist when I was 12, when I was 15. My father taught political science and history and government. We were talking about that around the dinner table. I went to Bobby Kennedy's funeral when I was 5 years old, and was
Wow.
outside the St. Patrick's Cathedral on my father's shoulders. I was an activist before I became an actor, or before I became a known actor. I wasn't an actor that became an activist. I was an activist that became an actor. And I wasn't a model that became an actor. I was an actor that studied, that modeled and supported myself while I was trying to launch my acting career.
Did you ever beat the pavement in New York in the modeling days?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Nadia had a funny
For
story.
people who don't know what that means, they're like, what is beat the pavement? Beat the pavement means going on castings, going on go-sees.
Pound the pavement. I was pounding the pavement. I remember one time I was trying to get back together with this college girlfriend that I had, and she knew I was modeling, and she knew I wanted to show off to her. So I took her to Condé Nast with me with my book to go on a go-see. I went to like GQ or Vogue or something. And I got read the riot act by this one, because I was there, and when they came out to invite me in to show my book, I was kissing this girl that was my girlfriend in college for like 2 years, and I had her up in Condé Nast, and we were in the waiting room of GQ or Vogue. And when they came out, I was the quote that Nadia said, "You were just at GQ, and they came out to get you, and you were sucking face with some girl in the lobby."
Ooh,
I
I could
was,
already hear Nadia just bitching you out.
yeah, you bomba clots. So she
I can
she she
only
GQ
imagine.
called and said, "We really love this guy, but it's a little unprofessional of him. He showed up with some girl, and they were like sucking face out in the lobby." And I was just trying to get her back. I think I was trying to say, like, "Look at me now. Am I good enough for you now?" Like, here we are at GQ. It's so funny.
Okay, listen, I'm a very big fan of yours and a very big fan of someone who I adore, Richard Hart. He just asked a great question. Tell us about your experience working with Sharon Stone.
Well, that was, it was a tough time. It was a mixed experience for me. I was very fortunate to work with Philip Noyce, very fortunate to work with Tom Berenger, incredibly fortunate to work with Howard Koch Jr. and Bob Evans. I mean, I worked with Robert Evans, and Bob
Wow,
Evans had
loved it.
produced The Godfather, and he was a very talented and very controversial guy.
Yeah,
Uh,
oh yeah.
but I always loved that time and experience that I had when he was writing The Kid Stays in the Picture at that time, and he was giving me chapters to read, and I was giving him notes back on, like, I wasn't editing him for him. I was just like, how do you respond? And he would give me a chapter. How does this make you feel? What do you think? What's your opinion? I want your feedback. And I was giving him feedback on various chapters when I was working with him and flying on planes to promote Sliver with him and stuff like that. It was amazing, but it was also tough. It was a long shoot, and I've always, when it comes to the whole situation with Sliver and some of the experiences that I've had with some of the people that I worked with on that film, I've always chosen to take the high road. So.